In the picturesque town of Willow Creek, known for its charming streets, lush green parks, and a close-knit community, a twisted tale of obsession and violence would soon unfold, casting a dark shadow over its idyllic facade. What began as a seemingly perfect life for one family spiraled into a nightmare, leaving the town reeling from the horrific consequences. Willow Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and life moved at a leisurely pace. The town square, a focal point of daily life, was dotted with quaint shops, cafes, and a stone fountain where children played on warm summer days. The air was always fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers from the meticulously maintained gardens that lined the streets. The residents prided themselves on their peaceful, harmonious lives, and the notion of serious crime was almost foreign to them. Little did they know that behind one of those charming doors, darkness was brewing. The Warren family had always been well regarded in Willow Creek. Samuel Warren, a 40-year-old architect, was known for his innovative designs that seamlessly blended modern aesthetics with the town's traditional charm. Born in 1984, Samuel had moved to Willow Creek with his first wife, drawn to the town's beauty and the prospect of a peaceful life. After his first marriage ended in a bitter divorce, he found solace in his work, channeling his energy into building a reputation as a brilliant yet somewhat enigmatic figure in the town. Samuel was a tall man, with sharp features and a brooding presence that made him stand out among the more laid-back townsfolk. His work was his pride, and his home reflected his architectural genius, a beautifully designed house that was both modern and in harmony with the natural beauty of Willow Creek. Samuel's designs were admired by all, yet his personal life remained a mystery to many. It wasn't long before Samuel met Anna, a successful author of mystery novels, who had recently moved to Willow Creek after the tragic death of her first husband in a car accident. Anna was a striking woman in her late 30s, with a sharp intellect and an aura of quiet confidence. She had a penchant for the Gothic, often weaving dark tales of suspense that belied her serene exterior. Her daughter, Lily, was just 10 years old when Samuel entered their lives. Lily, born in 2005, was a beautiful and intelligent young girl who adored her mother and initially warmed to Samuel's attention and affection. Anna and Samuel's relationship blossomed quickly, their shared love of creativity and intellectual pursuits drawing them together. They were married within a year. To the outside world, they seemed like the perfect family. Samuel was a devoted husband, and Anna was a loving mother, her writing career flourishing as she found inspiration in the town's serene surroundings. Lily, though still grieving the loss of her father, seemed to adjust well to her new life, excelling in school and developing a close bond with Samuel, at least at first. As Lily grew older, however, the dynamics in the Warren household began to shift. Samuel, who had once been a caring and supportive stepfather, started to show signs of an unhealthy fixation on Lily. At first, it was subtle comments on her appearance, lingering glances, and an overprotectiveness that went beyond normal parental concern. He would praise her beauty in ways that made Lily increasingly uncomfortable, his compliments tinged with an intensity that felt inappropriate. Samuel's comments evolved from mere praise to something more unsettling. He began comparing Lily to the women in Anna's novels, often remarking on how much she resembled the tragic heroines her mother wrote about, young, beautiful, and pursued by darkness. He became increasingly possessive, subtly undermining Lily's relationships with her friends and attempting to isolate her from those outside the family. Lily, who had always been close to her mother, began to feel a growing sense of unease around her stepfather. As she transitioned from adolescence to adulthood, the once affectionate bond with Samuel began to unravel. He became increasingly involved in her personal life, crossing boundaries that should have remained firmly in place. He would question her about her friends, her activities, and especially her romantic relationships, always with a tone of disapproval. Samuel's obsession grew more apparent as Lily entered her teenage years. At first, Samuel's behavior was dismissed by the family as mere overprotectiveness, a father's concern for his daughter. But as time passed, his actions grew more controlling. He would often make excuses to stay home whenever Lily had friends over, his presence a shadow over the young girl's social life. He would insist on driving her to and from school, even though she was old enough to drive herself, under the pretense of keeping her safe. Samuel even went as far as to install tracking software on her phone, unbeknownst to Lily, so he could monitor her every move. The summer before Lily was to leave for college marked the beginning of Samuel's descent into madness. His once calm and collected demeanor gave way to paranoia and delusions. He became convinced that the world outside was corrupting Lily, that her friends were leading her down a dangerous path. The thought of her leaving for college, away from his watchful eye, drove him to the brink of insanity. Lily, now fully aware of her stepfather's obsession, tried to distance herself from him as much as possible. She spent more time outside the house, staying with friends or visiting nearby cities in a desperate attempt to distance herself from Samuel. But his obsession only intensified. He became more controlling, more paranoid, convinced that Lily was slipping away from him. Samuel began following her, showing up at places where she was supposed to be safe, cafes with friends, the park, even her part-time job at a local bookstore. Anna remained oblivious to the growing tension. Engrossed in the writing of her latest novel, she failed to notice the dark cloud that had settled over her family. She dismissed Lily's concerns, telling her daughter that Samuel was only trying to protect her. Anna's own grief over her first husband's death had made her emotionally distant, and she was too absorbed in her work to see the signs of Samuel's unraveling. The situation reached a terrifying climax one sweltering evening in August, when Lily returned home late after spending the day with her boyfriend, Noah. Noah was a sweet and caring young man who had known Lily since childhood, their relationship blossoming naturally as they grew older. Samuel had always viewed Noah with suspicion, seeing him as a threat to the control he had over Lily. That night, Samuel was waiting for Lily in the dimly lit living room, his face contorted with rage. The air was thick with tension as he confronted her, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. He accused Lily of betraying him, of choosing Noah over her own family, his words laced with jealousy and madness. The argument escalated quickly. Lily, standing her ground for the first time, told Samuel that she was leaving for college in a few weeks and that there was nothing he could do to stop her. Her defiance only fueled Samuel's rage. In a fit of uncontrollable anger, he grabbed Lily by the arm, his grip tightening painfully as he dragged her towards the basement, a place that had always been his sanctuary. The basement was Samuel's inner sanctum, filled with architectural models, blueprints, and the tools of his trade. It was here that he had created his most celebrated works, where he could lose himself in the precision and creativity of his designs. But on this night, it became a chamber of horrors. Samuel, driven by delusion, was convinced that he needed to save Lily from the outside world, from the influences that were corrupting her and pulling her away from him. In a moment of madness, Samuel reached for a heavy wooden beam used for his models and struck Lily across the head. The impact was brutal, the sound of it echoing through the basement. Lily crumpled to the floor, blood pooling around her as Samuel stood over her, horrified by what he had done. The reality of the situation slowly dawned on him, and he realized with a growing sense of dread that he had killed his stepdaughter. In the aftermath of the crime, Samuel's mind unraveled completely. He was unable to face the horror of what he had done and tried to stage the scene as an accident. He carried Lily's lifeless body upstairs, placing her in her bed as if she had simply gone to sleep. Samuel then meticulously cleaned the basement, trying to erase any evidence of the violence that had occurred. He scrubbed the blood from the floor, disposed of the wooden beam, and wiped down every surface, as if he could wash away his guilt along with the evidence. When Anna returned home later that evening, she found Samuel sitting in the living room, his clothes stained with blood, his eyes vacant and hollow. He was mumbling to himself, words that made no sense, his mind completely shattered. When Anna rushed upstairs to check on Lily, she found her daughter's cold, lifeless body lying in bed, a sight that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Anna's screams echoed through the house, a sound that neighbors would later say they would never forget. The police were called, and Samuel was arrested without resistance. During the investigation, it became apparent that Samuel had been struggling with mental health issues for some time. his obsession with Lily driving him to madness. The community of Willow Creek was shocked by the tragedy, unable to comprehend how such a respected man could commit such a heinous act. Samuel Warren was tried and found guilty of the brutal murder of his stepdaughter, Lily. The trial quickly became a media sensation, drawing national attention to the once quiet and unassuming town of Willow Creek. Reporters flocked to the town, eager to cover every lurid detail of the case that had shattered the town's peaceful image. The courtroom was packed with spectators every day, the air heavy with a mix of morbid curiosity and palpable tension. The prosecution painted a chilling picture of Samuel as a man consumed by obsession, whose love had twisted into a dangerous fixation that ultimately drove him to commit murder. The defense, on the other hand, tried to argue that Samuel's actions were the result of a severe mental breakdown, exacerbated by years of untreated psychological issues. However, the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury was not swayed by the plea for leniency. Witnesses took the stand one by one, including friends of Lily, who recounted the increasingly controlling and unsettling behavior Samuel had exhibited in the months leading up to the crime. Neighbors spoke of strange noises coming from the Warren home late at night, while others described how Samuel had become more reclusive and paranoid in the days following Lily's death. Each testimony added another layer to the already harrowing tale, solidifying the town's growing sense of horror and disbelief. Anna Warren, devastated and broken, sat quietly in the courtroom, her face pale and her eyes vacant. She had lost everything: her daughter, her husband, and the life she had worked so hard to build. The woman who had once been the pillar of strength in her family was now a shadow of her former self. She did not speak during the trial, unable to find the words to express the depth of her grief and betrayal. The verdict was swift. Samuel Warren was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in his final remarks, condemned Samuel's actions as a heinous betrayal of the sacred trust between a parent and child, a crime that had not only taken an innocent life but had also forever scarred an entire community. As the gavel fell, signaling the end of the trial, Willow Creek was left to grapple with the aftermath of the tragedy. The town, once known for its peace and tranquility, was now infamous as the backdrop to a horrific crime. The picturesque streets that had once been filled with laughter and warmth now seemed shrouded in a perpetual gloom. The residents, who had once prided themselves on their close-knit community, were left questioning how such darkness could have festered in their midst. Anna, unable to bear the weight of her memories, left Willow Creek shortly after the trial concluded. She moved to a distant city, seeking anonymity and a chance to heal, though the scars of the past would never fully fade. The Warren home, once a symbol of architectural beauty and domestic bliss, stood empty for years, a grim reminder of the events that had unfolded within its walls. The story of the Warren family became a cautionary tale in Willow Creek, a reminder that even in the most serene and picturesque of places, darkness can lurk beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to destroy everything in its path. The town would eventually move on, but the memory of Lily's tragic death would linger like a ghost, a permanent stain on the town's history.